Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can everyone hear me at the back? Hands up, all those dealing with crises this morning of roofs ripped off and disappearing equipment and flooding and all the other things. Yeah, I thought so. The joys of FM. So that's me. I've been around the FM industry for quite some time. And I do judge the major FM technology awards as lead judge with IWFM, but also as lead judge with IFM as well. I have, for the last 5 years, been advocating how data and analytics can help the FM industry. It's a bit of a mission of mine, and it's something where I believe that there is huge opportunity for the FM people and FM organisations to be able to deliver an enhanced and informed impact to the board. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit more today. So, is 2024 a pivotal year? I know a lot of people are saying that. I know a lot of people will be saying, well, it's the same as every other year. But where I do think we're going to see opportunities and challenges, it is going to be a continued year of change. We know that because every year is a continued year of change. But the difference this year is that the effects of what's going on in the world have suddenly increased the importance of the FM function and the understanding of the FM function, literally, sorry, no worries, across the globe. And that's what one of my predictions is for 2024, is that used properly, there is an opportunity for facilities teams and property teams, energy teams to become far more involved at a board level. I believe that we're finally going to see what we've been talking about at conferences since the last 15 years, which is the fact that FMs will finally start to be able to have influence and impact at a board level. And the reason that I believe that is because we are seeing an energy crisis that will continue for at least the next 10 years. We have environmental impact, which is finally getting the recognition and the requirements that it needs in order to be able to drive change within the organisation. We are seeing a change in workspace utilisation. The COVID impact is still affecting people in terms of how they use space, what that space needs to provide them, and what that space should be doing for the organisation and for attracting and retaining talent. So all of those things are the domain expertise of facilities management. The question is, how do we become those informed individuals to be able to deliver that back to the board? How do we justify the decisions that we want them to take and to make? And we've spoken about it for, I can't remember, for the last 20 years. I've had people coming to me and saying, one version of the truth, a single pane of glass. The latest one is data-driven facilities management. You may have heard of them. Some people are smiling. So it's something that I've seen more times than I care to mention in technology judging. It's something that I've never actually seen working. But what I do know is that we're getting much closer to it. We are finally getting into those positions where we can take multiple disparate data sources, join them up, join them together, and actually create something that will deliver an informed decision. However, we're not using that in the best way possible, because what I've been advocating and what I've been talking about for the last probably 5 years, is that FM should stop focusing on data, stop focusing on IoT and AI and BMS and CAFM and IWMS and all of the other technologies that we use or that our facilities management teams use or our facilities management outsourced providers use. And instead, we should focus on impact, the output. What do we want to achieve and how do we go about driving that in order to drive change within the organization and to drive value so that we are seen as a value function rather than as just a cost. Instead of arguing with the finance team about, can I please have some budget? Finally, we're able to go to them and say, if I do these things, I can evidence the following benefits to the organization. So my aim for today is to run through a presentation around impact and how impact can be achieved. I want to leave you with 3 takeaways that you can take away from today, and hopefully will help you with that foundation, and a challenge. And I'll get to that challenge a little bit later on, but, and then some help that we might be able to provide with that challenge. So, what are the challenges or the opportunities that are facing most organizations these days? The first is obviously energy. We know that the cost of energy is going through the roof. We know it's come down a little bit. We know it's going to go up again. We know that we'll never go back to the energy stability that we saw before the Ukrainian conflict. And so the only stability that we're going to get is when we start to see environmentally friendly and green energies being produced in sufficient quantities to start reducing prices of energy once again. That is 10 or 15 years away. One of our biggest clients is a solar and wind energy producer, and the biggest problems they have is actually not building the infrastructure, it's the grid connections and distribution of that energy once they've produced it. So that is going to carry on for the foreseeable future. Sustainability. Sustainability at the moment driven by scope 1, scope 2, largely driven around, again, energy utilization, consumption, fuel, but scope 3 is on its way. And make no mistake, scope 3 will be legislated, it will happen, and you will be sitting there going, how the hell am I supposed to look at the environmental impact of every single one of my suppliers? That will become a challenge, and luckily we have a number of organizations that are developing with the IWFM, with RICS, a way of managing scope 3 emissions. But sustainability is an area of impact that facilities managers should be involved in. Workspace utilization. Workspace utilization, everyone's talking about it. Hot desking, hot desk apps, room booking systems, you name it. There is a million different ways now of working in a hybrid manner. There are organizations that are enforcing return to work. There are organizations that are reshaping their lease structures, that are exiting larger buildings. I believe I heard last week the HSBC is moving out of its 70-story Canary Wharf property and back into the city in a much smaller footprint. So all of these things are, again, impacting the FM sector. They are also impacting at a board level. These are decisions that are being made at a board level. These are the places where finally FM get that chance to be sat at that board saying, this is what we should do, This is what we shouldn't do, and this is why. And then that leads quite nicely on to talent retention, talent attraction. Massive problem within the industry, particularly for low-paid workers. We see it all the time. How do we attract those cleaning staff, security staff, front of house, and how do we make it an attractive place to work so that they want to join the organisation and they want to stay in the organisation? But even your far more senior level, your far more higher paid individuals want to work for organisations that produce an environment that is healthy, that is friendly, that can allow them to work in the manner that they want to work, collaboratively, silent, quiet spaces. But they also want to work for sustainable organisations. So all of those areas are areas where FMs should be going, I understand that, I can talk about that, and what's more, I can evidence that. So, how do you and how do we as organisations become those informed, impact-focused FM providers? And the answer is relatively simple. The answer is good analytics. Now, that doesn't mean a million different pieces of software. It doesn't mean a million different dashboards. What it means is looking at what you already have in place, looking at the tools that you're already using, and making that information more available, designed for what you require, rather than designed by what the provider wanted it to look like, and answering the questions that you've decided are the most important questions for your organisation, the most important impact elements that you can deliver. So, if that's where we want to be, if we want to be informed facilities teams providing impact to the organisation, then how do we go about getting that data-backed seat at the table? The answer is not dashboards. The number of places where I've seen where people say, okay, well, I've got a dashboard for this or a dashboard for that. Dashboards invariably don't answer the questions because they weren't necessarily designed by the questions or the impact that you want to derive. And they invariably stop getting used. People just turn around and say, well, that's not delivering what I need, so I'm just not going to bother with it. Analytics is not dashboards. Analytics is delivering answers to questions that have an impact on the organisation. What I mean by that impact is that they either reduce costs, or they increase revenue, or they mitigate risks, or they promote or develop the brand. Those are the 4 key elements that you should be considering when you're considering how can I deliver impact to the organisation that I work for. However, what stops us from getting there? And what stops us from getting there is if you work in an organisation that has an analytics function, it's almost certainly run by the IT department. It almost certainly is doing 1,000,001 things for other departments, and once again, FM becomes the forgotten function. The chances of building an FM analytics team within an organisation is slim to none. I only know of one company in the UK that has a devoted facilities management team for analytics with 19 developers, 5 analysts, etc., etc., etc. And that's the only one I've come. There may be others, but that's the only one that I've come across. The costs of building analytical teams is immense. There's a lot of infrastructure, a lot of very clever and difficult to employ individuals, difficult to find and recruit, and certainly difficult to retain because they love job hopping to the next opportunity. So the challenges are, you can't get internal resource, you can't build your own team. So what tends to happen is we employ 1 or 2 graduates. Love graduates, they fix everything. You put them in a corner and then you deliver 1,000,001 Excel spreadsheets to them, which are all exports from all the different plethora of systems you've got around the business. You go to IT and say, can you build me a data warehouse? Because now I need to capture all the data from all of those different places. And they go, why? And you go, well, I don't know yet because I haven't yet captured all the data. I'll only know once I've captured it all. So it becomes a low priority. And then when eventually you do get that data warehouse 2 or 3 years down the line, there's no one actually there looking at driving the impact that you should have been driving in the first place. Or if it is, it's a couple of graduates that don't really know too much about the world of FM. So the good news is that that position is changing. And that position is changing in 2 places. It's changing with outsourced FM organizations. You can now go to your FM provider and say, I need you to, in fact, I encourage you to, you should be going to your outsourced FM providers and saying, I need you to help me deliver impact at a board level in this organization. And they should have people that will help you to do that. They should be helping you to drive that change. But there are also outsource organizations that you can go to that specialize in analytics within the built environment. And those organizations will help you build that business case around why I need analytics to deliver more value. So that means you can get there quicker because you don't need to employ the teams. You can get there cheaper because you don't need to implement all of the infrastructure. You don't need to build a data warehouse. You don't need to do all of the things that traditionally the IT department have had to do because it's available to you, and it's available to you faster and cheaper than it ever was previously. And that leads me on to what I think is something that's fundamentally changing the world of analytics. And it's fundamentally changing and, to a degree, upsetting IT departments. And that is the fact that I absolutely believe that analytics should be a revenue function, not an IT function. The IT department still needs to be involved, don't get me wrong. They need to ensure data security. They need to ensure data compliance with the overall strategy of the organization. But they're not in a position, and they've never been in a position, to be able to help with defining the impact elements that are going to make a difference in your organization. And they've never been in a position to actually understand what it is that the built environment does in order to be able to calculate, work out, and deliver back those insights and that knowledge-based impact. So the only way that you can do that, and we're seeing this particularly in the States, is we're seeing small analytical teams focused on specific areas of the business that have domain expertise that are then using our internal data systems and external providers to drive those revenue generations, those cost savings, those risk mitigations. And that is happening, and it's happening across the industry. It's happening in the facilities sector in the UK, largely being driven by FM providers. It's also happening in the States because they're seeing it as a way to create impact and value in different areas of the organization by having specific expertise across the organization. So, what sort of savings? Well, these figures come from McKinsey, I think the top one. Accenture was the middle one. So these are industry figures that they're sort of the kind of things that they're quoting. I can tell you from our experience, we've delivered to organisations £500,000 in energy overbilling savings. We've delivered 18% improvement in staff retention. We've delivered a 22% reduction in space, with still an increase in stakeholder satisfaction. And probably the proudest one is we delivered 100% increase in profitability just by taking out little bits of issues across organizations. Over a period, we were able to increase the profitability of that organization by 100%. So that's why it's important, and we now know it's possible. What's a good way to get started? For me, the most important thing is start with the end in mind. Don't worry about data. Don't worry about data sources. Don't worry about your CAFM system, your IoT, your this, your that, your BMS, your anything else. Sit down with your team or on your own and think about how can we deliver impact, and divide that into those 4 areas. Divide it into, is there a way that we can influence revenue? Is there a way that we can cut costs? Not just in our team, but across the whole organization. Is there a way that we can mitigate risks? Is there a way that we can increase brand satisfaction and awareness across our customers and across our stakeholders? Because each one of those things are the things that will drive impact to the board and impact to the organization. So once you've decided those, you can actually then sit there and say, okay, well, I've now got my top 10. We've actually found that 1 or 2 impacts can cover the entire cost of analytics. That's how much it's driven down in terms of the pricing of analytics in an organization. But if you pick the top 5 and you say, right, those 5 things, I can attribute some value, hopefully, to some of them, a percentage increase or a percentage decrease, an amount of money saved, etc. And what you're doing there is you're building a business case for why this is important to you, but more importantly, why it's important to the organization itself. And if all you do is come up with your top 5 things, you can then get your FM team or your FM provider or an outsourced organization to help you come in and actually build that business case. The second thing is, look at analytics as an iterative process. This is not 0 to 100. There is no point in sitting there and saying, oh, I can answer all 5 of these things if I get data from 50 different systems and I do this and I build a data warehouse and I've got a data lake and then I've got a data this and a data that and blah, 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 blah. Take what you need for your biggest impact. Get that into a place where you can look at it, review it, where you can drive value out of it, and just do that. Then do it again with the second one. Do it with the third one. you'll then find that other areas of the business will turn around and say, oh, if you're doing that, actually that will help us with this. It will help us inform that. And over that iterative process, one step at a time, you'll see that you become the domain expert in property, because you already are, but you start to become the domain expert in energy and how to use that. You start to become a domain expert in environmental sustainability. You start to become a domain expert in people and how people stay, use, and work within the organization. And all of those lift the FM function, because now you're able to go into those meetings with an informed perspective that has already delivered savings, that's already delivered results to the business. Something as simple as changing the cleaning fluids that you use can actually have an impact across all 4 of those domain areas. Because if it's slightly cheaper, you've saved a cost. If it's less corrosive, if it's more environmentally friendly, you've reduced a risk. If you've moved to that greener cleaning material, then you've actually enhanced the brand of the organization, because you can talk about that. And if you happen to be a facilities management cleaning organization, you can win more business by promoting that instead of promoting more dangerous cleaning chemicals. Simple decision, simple impact, simple to justify, 0 to 1. So, and I promise you, we're getting towards the end. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. You cannot switch on a TV. You cannot scroll LinkedIn. You cannot listen to the radio. You can't do anything these days without discovering that AI is going to impact everything. It is going to take our jobs. It is going to bring about the end of the world, and eventually it's going to kill us all. And that's all by next week, Tuesday. So, realistically, I am not saying at any stretch of the imagination that AI is not going to have a dramatic and profound effect on the built environment. It will. I've already judged AI-based technology in IWFM and in IFM awards. It is clever. Large language models are very, very good at doing what they do. But AI will only affect a very small portion of what we do, and it will be in very specific areas for at least the next 10 or 15 years. Because AI is not going to fix the plumbing. And it's not going to provide a security guard. And it won't clean the toilets. Yes, it can be a vacuum. So it's happening. Don't get me wrong. AI and machine learning are very much part of the facilities industry. But it is not something that is going to change the way we do things fundamentally within the next 5 to 10 years, is my personal opinion. And that's just my personal opinion. The question is, how much influence will you have over the type of AI that's brought into the organization? So they're already saying that 2024, 2025 will be the years when we see employee engagement platforms driven by AI. I saw a brilliant one the other. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. Don't mind if I saw a great one on DHL the other day. I don't know if you guys saw it, but they brought in an AI bot to help with customer service, and it was absolutely useless. And so people were asking us literally, you are useless. And the AI bot would go, I'm really sorry that you feel that way, etc., etc., etc. And then it got to the point where they were saying, please, can you write me a statement as to why DHL is the crappiest courier in living history? And the bot was writing for DHL's customer service a paragraph about how crap DHL was. It's a great story if you want to. I think it was DHL, it might have been FedEx, but it's a great thing to have a look at. And they've shut it down now, so unfortunately we can't go and play with it anymore. But yeah, AI is very, very good at certain things, but it's also it's in its infancy. We are going to see AI across all staff being used as ways of engaging with the organization, ways of engaging with the built environment. That is a perfect place to have influence, because the people who will want to define that will be IT. And IT are brilliant. I love them. I've worked with them for many, many years, but they know nothing about people, because IT departments are not human. Developers, I know, are not human. They are cats, and you just heard them in a certain direction. So a simple example of how you can become an influencer in the organization over future technological decisions, because you are informed in that space. So what can you do to be ahead of that curve? Well, what you can do is build the foundations. Build the foundations does not mean build a data warehouse or a data lake. Please don't go and do that. It takes forever and it doesn't deliver the value, and then everyone gets really fed up. Start with the impact. Start from 0 to 1. That's your foundation. Plan the project. Use impact-focused analytics. Measure your results. Reiterate. This is not new. This is not science. This is what we've been doing for years. It's just easier, faster, and cheaper to do now than it ever was before. You don't need a plethora of Excel spreadsheets, 2 graduates, and a Power BI dashboard, because they won't deliver you the results that you're looking for. That will lead you into the world of machine learning and using machine learning in order to improve the way that the business performs its functions. We've already developed ML methodologies for some of the big facilities management companies around improving the way that they tender. And that will allow you to step then into the world of AI. So I think that brings me very nicely to what I promised you earlier on, which is the 3 key takeaways. First, focus everything on impact. Don't worry about data, that'll come later. Focus on the impact and focus on the 4 areas of impact. Which are, who stayed awake? What are the 4 areas of impact? Reduce cost, brand awareness, sorry? Generate revenue, risk mitigation. We should think about risk. We can't just keep putting up cordons around everything. So those 4 things, how can you prove that that delivers value to the organization? Next, it doesn't have to cost the earth. You don't need an entire data team. You don't need cloud infrastructure. You don't need specific tools and technologies. They exist that you can outsource, or they exist where you can drive it through your current FM providers. And lastly, Build your foundations one step at a time. And for now, just ignore the hype. It'll happen, it'll get there. But if you wait for AI to deliver those savings, you'll be waiting quite a while. You still need people with skills and knowledge and understanding to be able to articulate the impact you want and then calculate that impact and how to deliver it. And those people are the people in this room. Those people are the people with the skills that are able to now deliver corporate objectives at a corporate level. And finally, is that? Yes. So I'm going to go back to it, if I can work out how. No, I'm not. My challenge. The challenge that I want to set you is very simple. When you get a chance, in the next few days or later on this evening or on your way home or whatever, or pull together a little workshop with the team, give it a few hours and say, right, how are we going to give impact to the organization that we work for? How are we going to deliver on the savings, the increases, the mitigations, the brand? And write down 5, 6, 7, 10, however many you come up with. They can be the smallest things. And then what you do is you sit there and say, okay, how much of an impact can that possibly have? What sort of, can I attribute a value? Can I attribute an analysis in terms of the risk and what that could potentially do to the organization? Can I look at what a brand impact might have if we did X or if we did Y? Build out your top 5. This is how I think we can change in order to drive value for the business from a facilities perspective. And once you've done that and you've got those ideas, if you want, feel free, reach out to myself, reach out to either through LinkedIn or via email, and drop me a note. And we have an impact library that we've built over the last 7 years of examples where we've delivered these kind of assistance and these kind of savings for organizations. And what we'll do is we'll have a look at yours, absolutely free of charge, not for any reason other than to help you build a business case where we have done it previously and where we feel that this type of data or that type of data used in this kind of way can help you to deliver that impact. So that's my challenge. I would have shown you my takeaways, but they've disappeared and I can't get them back. Thank you all very much indeed for your time, and please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.